summarize your normal day or...
Well, I don't want anybody to get nervous. I am from admissions, and we have a tendency to be long-winded. But I understand I'm on a panel, and I would never do that. My name is Egbert, and I work in the Undergraduate Admissions Office as Senior Assistant Director, so I do a little bit of everything. My primary role is working generally with transfer students, and more specifically with the Carolina Student Transfer Excellence Program, which is a program where students, North Carolina Community College students from 9 specific colleges are guaranteed admission to UNC after earning an associate's degree. So we work to make sure that we graduate those students on time. It's a very fulfilling job. No 2 days are alike in admissions. I think all of my colleagues would say that in undergraduate admissions. So I spend days on the phone, working with colleagues across campus and within the office. Do a lot of programming. I have some budget responsibility. I manage a few folks in the office, so making time for colleagues. A lot of assessment of the programs that we run, and a variety of public duties, such as emailing, might be public speaking, might be working with families and students one-on-one, trying to come up with academic plans. That's in short, Sled.
Good afternoon. I am Ronda, Manuel, and I'm the Associate Director of Development with the Arts and Sciences Foundation here at Carolina. I actually have a varying role as well, I think, on a day-to-day basis, but for the majority of what I'm doing, I meet with our alumni and donors and friends at the university throughout the country that have an interest in supporting Carolina. In the past, we've been set up kind of in a departmental role where we represented certain departments within the college, but now we actually are set up regionally. So my regions are New York, D.C., Chicago, the outskirts of Illinois, as well as central North Carolina, the Fayetteville, Pinehurst area. And so as you can imagine, there's a lot of travel involved with my job. I am supposed to visit some of those areas at least 4 to 6 times a quarter. I'm supposed to be traveling to those areas. So a lot of what I do is building my call list of donors and alumni in those areas that I then reach out to, do research on them to learn more about their passion and their capacity for supporting Carolina, and then travel, hit the road to visiting with them. When I'm here in the office, I do serve as liaison for some of the departments in the college, as I mentioned. Some of my bigger areas are econ, history, geography. I also work with the ROTCs, Peace, War, and Defense. So I'm their contact whenever they have great fundraising ideas that they think our alumni would love, as well as the contact for my colleagues who travel to other parts of the country to meet with alumni and donors. They may meet with someone in California and come back and say, hey, I have someone who wants to support econ. Can you work with me to develop a proposal for them? So I work very closely with our development communications person, who's actually in the audience today, and she helps us draft great proposals that we then send back to those donors in different parts of the country. And I work closely with the department on getting that information for the proposals, as well as different boards and alumni events here on the campus.
Thank you. Yes, I'm Allison Reid. I'm the Assistant Dean for Communications at the law school. And I'm a bit of a jack of all trades as well. It's a small department in communications at the law school. There's just 2 of us. And then we have some student assistants. So I'm involved in kind of everything we do, which ranges from website design and content. We publish an alumni magazine twice a year. So we're writing stories, editing, layout, managing freelance designers, photographers, writers, that type of thing. We also support our alumni affairs and development folks with proposals and anything they might need marketing-wise. We support our admissions department with materials they might need. We manage the broadcast emails for both of those areas. And we also do some work with the Career Development Office and help with any of their materials. I also help the dean with his messaging, his strategic communications plans, just from the higher law school perspective. And then any media relations for faculty. So our faculty are doing a lot of amazing research, and they're doing a lot of pro bono work in the community, and they want, sometimes they want us to spread the word. And also I field media calls. So anybody looking for an expert for a particular trial that's in the news, I field those calls and help connect them with the right expert. That also dovetails into crisis communication. So anytime there's something in the news that relates to law school, then I don't know what you're laughing at. But so I manage media related to anything that's in the news. Hopefully it'll be a quiet week.
Thanks, Samara. I actually don't work at the university, but I did stay at Holiday Express last night. My name is Todd, and I'm the assistant director for the UNC student affairs at the UNC-Chapel School of Pharmacy. And similar to my colleagues, our jobs are kind of 2 days alike. It's a hodgepodge of events. One day it might be interacting with folks in the alumni and development office. We might interact with the communications office across campus. In a general sense, I advocate for our graduate program, our graduate students. I also have some responsibilities within the PharmD program in terms of new student recruitment. So I get a little bit of travel out of that. I'll be at UNC-Charlotte in a couple weeks, and so it's fun to kind of take the show on the road, or the rails, and I'm taking Amtrak this time, to reach out and find prospective students to come to the university. I work with our partners in undergraduate admissions, and we'll do partner programs such as Explore Carolina, or Pharmacy Academic Day, where high-achieving prospective students will come and hang out at the School of Pharmacy for a day. And so it's an exciting area to work in. A lot of times student affairs folks are just shiny, happy people holding hands, and so that's kind of fun as well. More icebreakers than I care to be around ever. As an introvert, typically I don't even like people. Just kidding. I like Jesus. But it's a fun area to work in, fun environment in the School of Pharmacy, and so that's a quick intro of the types of advising, mentoring, and student support services that we do.
Hi, I'm Kenyal. Just a quick word, just to chime in. I know Charles, I've worked with him before. You really should consider working for the Employee Forum. I did my tour of duty. Of course, it was a long time ago. It was back in the Michael Hooker days, so that's a while back. But everyone should take their turn, and everyone should contribute some of their time. It's part of what goes towards building a community and making it a little bit better place to work. So, all right, I work for ITS, Information Technology Services. I have a staff, there's 14 positions in my group. I've got approximately 3,200 customers spread out over a little over 100 offices. But mostly we do back-end stuff. Undergraduate admissions is one of my customer sites. Larry Heimer works for me. So we have our fingers in a lot of things. The Friday Center, probably the biggest and most visible customer site I have is Department of Athletics. So we work all of the events here on campus, both the regularly scheduled events during regular season, plus if you haven't noticed, hopefully you have, hopefully you've taken advantage of this, we host a lot of tournament events on behalf of the NCAA, women's basketball, soccer, lacrosse, Boschhammer, baseball, that type of thing. So and some of the stuff I do, I find my stuff very interesting, but for most people they go, oh, well, really? That's what you do? Because I work in IT, so I do kind of infrastructure type things. I do a lot of work with this guy. This is Dan McClam, and he's with Office of Security, and that's one of the things that we really try and focus on with all of our customers is making sure that we're keeping the data secure and making sure the machines are up to date and that they're safe to use. And we get into a lot of different things because infrastructure ends up impacting pretty much everything we do, including planning decisions and a lot of purchasing decisions. But yeah, I've pretty much Okay, over the course of my career, I've been an assistant director of the graduate school, been student services manager. I started out as a typist. I've been kind of off and on a jack of all trades at different times. But I really enjoy being in IT. So I've enjoyed being here on campus too. And I think that's as much as anything the brightest part of the whole deal. So there you are.
And you kind of kicked us off a little bit on the next question I have, which is your path into higher education. So did you always know that you wanted to work on a college campus? How did you get to where you are at this point?
Okay, you're going to be sorry you asked that. Okay, all right. What I wanted to be was a professional musician. All right, and so I've only applied for 2 positions. I'll try and keep this short because everybody else needs to be able to say things too. But I've only applied for 2 positions here on this campus. Now I've held, I think, 16 the last time I counted, but I only applied for 2. That's what happens on this campus, and we'll talk more about that. You know, if you show initiative and interest and try and do a good job, I've always noticed that this is a very nurturing environment. Your bosses, for the most part, most of them, they notice these things and they'll try and find ways to develop that. Doesn't always result in more money, okay? So if you're here for the money, I've got bad news for you. All right? But if you're here for the experience and the environment, is a wonderful place. So, how did I get here? I came to school in 1970, but I knew the whole time I really wanted to be a traveling musician. I played music all through high school and had actually started traveling already by the time I got here as a freshman. So anyway, I worked as a full-time musician for about 4 years, and I had a day job. Oh my God, a day job. I was a typist here at UNC, working for a school social. And the short version is things didn't work out as a musician, and I kind of found myself saying, well, gee, maybe I want to just stay here anyway. Because this is my alma mater. I came here, I have a degree from school of business. And so I just kind of backed my way into that part of it. And then once I got into it, there's as much opportunity here as you want to make it, and I picked up on that kind of early, and I had good bosses. Hey, I was working for a school social work. They're all counselors, okay? They all want to, can I help you? Do you have problems? Can we talk? All right, so anyway, that's the short version of the background. So.
Thank you. Aaron, tell us a little bit about your path into and through higher ed.
Sure. I was, as an undergrad, what you might call a dork. And so I was one of those students that really enjoyed getting involved in different opportunities as far as being a resident assistant, an orientation leader, I think I was an academic advising. Did I do snaps for something? Yeah. Still right there? For our orientation leader? Yes, very good. So yeah, so I found through those, working in those different offices and areas, that there was a higher education for higher education. And so I went to the University of Tennessee, and my degree is a Master of Science in College Student Personnel. And so that training, background on that training is student development, learning how students kind of go from one level to another level and helping understand why they might not always be making good decisions. A little bit of research involved in that program, and also just counseling and general student advocacy, how to help students reach their maximum potential. And so initially I was going to be a teacher, but then I realized this is going to be dramatic here, but I realized I didn't like high school and middle schoolers either. But I love college students. I love the very frightened freshmen. I love that, and I wanted to kind of help them overcome those fears. And so real quickly, moving to work with graduate students, I was a little afraid that I was going to lose out on that. But then I learned that graduate students are students too, and still have needs, they still have fears, they still struggle with homesickness, they still have to adjust to a new community, so they still need best practices in transition and orientation. And so yeah, it's just been a neat ride. It's really just a mentor of mine saying, did you know that you can get a degree in this? And that's all it took. And then I never had to teach middle schoolers or high schoolers either, which was awesome.
Have you worked at any other campuses besides UNC?
I have. So I worked at my alma mater, Central Michigan. I worked at a school about 9.8 miles from here. I did. I really did. So one day I hope to complete the triangle and work in Raleigh. But I did work in Raleigh for a short time at Peace College / William Peace University for a time too. And that was really interesting. And we might get into this deeper in the conversation, but kind of dabbling into the differences between working at a private school and a public school, a big school plus a real small school. There's a lot of differences in Miami, everywhere. Resources, culture, everything. But I won't dive into that right now. But I work at Carolina now. I really do. I don't like... I'll stop right there. This is being recorded.
What about you?
So I was an English undergraduate major. I went to Wake Forest, and I wanted to be an advertising copywriter at a major ad agency, and I had no idea how to go about doing that. So I enrolled in graduate school at the University of Georgia in journalism, mass communications, and thought that I would just then go get a job in Atlanta in a big ad agency, and that would be the end of it. And then, as things happen, I took an internship while I was a student there at the University of Georgia Press. So they publish, academic books, largely books by faculty members, and I was doing the publicity and communication for the actual books, and I loved it, fell in love with it, and it changed my plans. I, decided I really wanted to do something that was more meaningful. I loved the concept of maintaining this connection with higher education because I just loved school. I had considered a PhD, but was too worried about making money and student loans and that kind of thing. So I was able to parlay that internship into a full-time position at UNC Press. So that's how I came to UNC. And doing publicity for books and authors. And then went back to Georgia, to the University of Georgia Press as the actual marketing and sales director for that press, and was there for about 5 years. And then for personal family reasons, we wanted to move back up to the Triangle, and that's where I had to leave the publishing world, because it's a very small world and nobody really ever, once you get in, they don't leave, because it's a great place to work. So there were no positions at UNC Press when we moved back up to the Triangle, and I ended up getting a great opportunity at the business school at UNC. So that sort of broadened my experience. I went from just university press marketing and publicity to the kind of broader school and faculty publicity. So there I did media relations, a lot of writing, which is what I wanted to do. So I was doing a lot of newsletter writing, web content, and then again, following my husband and his career path, we went to Charlotte, and I got a job at UNC Charlotte. So I was the communications director for the College of Liberal Arts and Sciences down there, which was a dream job. I'm a liberal arts person, and this was just right down my alley. I really enjoyed that. I was able to actually launch the department there. They had not had anyone there doing communications and marketing. So I spent 3 years just sort of building that department and creating the processes. And the thing is about the move to Charlotte is we didn't want to move to Charlotte. We wanted to stay here, and so our plans were always to come back. And I saw the job opening at the law school here and went for it, and my husband was able to begin working from home, staying in his current position, and follow me back here. We've just been sort of chasing each other across the Southeast. But I was able to come back to UNC. I've been here almost 4 years in my role at the law school now. So that's my journey. Now what about you?
Sure. So I graduated from Carolina undergrad almost 10 years ago and have been working at the university ever since, so that can happen. I initially started my career in the Office of the Vice Chancellor for Student Affairs, which is where I worked as a student. And so after I graduated, they were willing to hire me as an admin assistant in that office, which eventually I had a degree from the School of Journalism with an interest in public relations. And so that admin position kind of evolved into their communications and events coordinator for the director of development there in student affairs. And so that's when I got my first kind of taste at development. I started writing stewardship letters and annual fund pieces and working on their newsletter for student affairs, as well as planning some of the donor engagement events and some of the larger events for the Division of Student Affairs, and really enjoyed working with donors and working with parents of students and our alumni. And so from there, I then received a position in our Central Development Office here on campus, where I was the Director of Diversity and Annual Giving within the Carolina Annual Fund. And so that was actually a new position that was created to connect with our minority alumni and diverse constituents, and to encourage their support of the university for different areas across campus. And from there, working in the annual fund is kind of a great way to really learn about fundraising, where it's not necessarily about how much a person gives, but just creating the habit of giving and establishing the participation of our alumni and donors, and then hoping that those dollars will continue to follow. So from there, I really learned the fundamentals of development and went on to an assistant director position for major gifts with the North Carolina Children's Promise, which is the fundraising arm of the Children's Hospital here on campus. So I took 2 years and went to the healthcare side of UNC and learned a lot about UNC healthcare, learned a lot about grateful patients, but realized that I really missed the student life, faculty, and alumni part of the university. And so since September, I've been here in the College of Arts and Sciences, and it's really been great to reconnect with the heart and soul of campus.
Thank you. Rebecca?
Well, I wish I had a fancy story about how I got involved in college admissions, and I wish I could tell you that I knew since I was 5 years old that I wanted to be in undergraduate admissions, but I don't, and I didn't. I was actually got married right out of college, and neither one of us had a job, and so we were a little nervous. My husband was interning with an engineering firm, and luckily they hired him on permanently after his intern. So it gave me a little bit more flexibility. I still didn't really know what I wanted to do. I was a business major, did not know exactly what I wanted to do, and started looking at the university. And I am one of those that just worked my way up. I started here as a record manager within the Office of Undergraduate Admissions, and I'm in my 18th year. I learned that I was intrigued by the work. It was really interesting to me, and after my first year, I applied to become an assistant director and work recruiting first-year students out of the state of Florida. That was my territory for a long time. And so I did that for a while, and then became senior assistant director after a while, and then learned that my real true love is working with transfer students and piecing together their puzzles and helping them with their educational future. And so when Steve came to me and said, would you be interested in leading this program and developing C-STEP, I said, you're darn right I would. I did, and I've been doing that now for 9 years. It started in '06, and we're about to hit our 10-year mark. So I still see a ways to go with that particular program, and I've always said that I would stick with my current position as long as I was happy. And I truly love my work. And if there comes a day where I'm pulling into that parking deck and I don't enjoy what I'm doing anymore, it's time to find something else. But that day has not yet come.
It's really great to hear diversity of stories, all different pathways into and through the field, and how many different kind of moves that you've made and been able to stay within your passion in higher ed. I want to make sure that we save some time for questions at the end, so I'm going to skip to my last question, and we can always come back to the other. What advice do you have for students looking to transition into a role like yours after graduating from UNC, either as undergrads or grad students, or for staff members thinking about making a career transition on campus? And we'll start this time with Rebecca, and we'll just work back down.
Wow. Yeah, I would say if you're currently here, you're a student here, and you're trying to figure out what it is that you want to do, or you've been on staff here for a while and you're looking for something else to do, one of the things I encourage is just reaching out to people and having conversations with people about their job. Several people have been referred to me over the last several years, so I talk with 4 or 5 people every year about what it is I do. And I let them know this is only UNC-Chapel Hill, so I don't know how it's done in other admissions offices. I have colleagues around the country, but I only know how things work here. And so reaching out and talking, asking questions, figuring out what you want to do is certainly a great way to do that. Obtaining multiple experiences, multiple different educational experiences within high schools or at community colleges or different places within either student affairs or the academic side of the house at universities, I think is the way to go. Intern, figuring out whether or not this is something you would enjoy doing.
Great. I think for me, like you said, is loving your job. I think the most important thing is really finding what you're passionate about. I enjoy fundraising because I absolutely love Carolina. I know that I could not do fundraising for every organization or every school, not 8 or 9 miles down the road for sure, but that's the key, is really finding what you're passionate about and really digging deep into that. And again, fundraising is one of those things that's usually never on a panel about careers. You know, we're not at career fairs. It's not something that you think of. Most people fall into this career. And so, you know, as a student or as a staff member, find ways to volunteer in organizations and get involved with the fundraising aspects of that organization. We just had a student in our office, or a recent graduate in our office who was our intern, just received her first job in development, but she was the development coordinator for UNC Dance Marathon. And so that's where she realized that she really enjoyed fundraising. I was like, wow, what a great idea. But you just don't think to get involved in your extracurricular activities in something that you would be interested in pursuing as a career. And so really find that time to volunteer. And then, like she said, find that mentor that is in the field that you can learn from, whether it's informal or formal, just to get information about their day-to-day. What are the things that they love? What are the things that they hate? And what led them into that process of their career. And I think those things will align with helping you find that perfect fit.
So I'll echo a little bit what you said. I mean, an internship is what launched me on this unlikely path. And so I couldn't encourage an internship more for students. I mean, the alternative to that for someone already working as a staff member would be volunteering, like you said, in an area that you might be interested in pursuing. And just getting that experience and making those connections, because what I found, it was, my internship was for a person who was so well respected in the industry that it didn't even matter that I was a student intern. As soon as, the next person I was talking to about a job found out I worked for him, they were like, we want you here. And then, it went on from that perspective, and that's been immensely helpful, and that leads me to my second point, which is coming from someone who's a slight introvert, although not a person hater. But I'm not great.
Actually, look at the camera. I do like people.
Not me, but I'm not big on networking events. It's hard for me, so I've tried to find my own way, which is really just mining the relationships that I've already made and the people that I've worked with, and really keeping in touch. Because I've moved around a bit, and it's so important not to lose touch and to make sure that they're still a part of your life and your kind of professional development. And then the other theme that I've kind of noticed as I've been thinking about this is that you have to be willing to take a risk. And if you want to make a new position, or if you want to make a change, you might have to put yourself out there and be scared. Or, for example, when I had to switch, I didn't have to, but I ended up switching from University Press Publishing to just University Communications. I went, it was a step down. I went from managing a team of 5 to being managed by a team of 5. And I thought, and it was less pay, but it was at UNC. It was doing something that I thought would actually turn into a long-lasting career, and it has. And it was a risk, but it's paid off. And so I would always suggest, think about, this might be a temporary setback, but if you see a kind of bigger picture, then it can really pay off.
Can I stop you there? Thoughts and feelings on folks doing temporary, part-time positions, other entry levels, maybe get a foot in the door, equally as valuable as an internship, volunteering, or student leadership, if they're kind of dipping a toe into that area?
Her or any of us?
Any of you, yeah.
Absolutely.
Yep.
That was too fast. Oh, I didn't talk long enough.
I don't have any personal experience in that, so I don't feel, but
Sure, but someone could show their interest one way too. Perfect. All right, Aaron, what about you? What advice do you have?
Be happy. Identify what gives you energy. Is it working a late night program in student activities or housing? It was for me for a little while. I was a hall director at the University of Tennessee for a little while, and I wanted to go home. And being a hall director, you don't go home. Your home is your work is your home. And so consider that. But some people, I've friends who've done that for gasp, 14 years they've been hall directors, where it's like, there's another world out there. So consider what gives you energy. For me, it was like, seeing the light bulb go off with a student to like give them advice that they actually like acted on or accepted. That's always happened. But I think just identify the environment that you're happy in. If it's working at a college for the rest of your life, absolutely. I mean, look at those trees outside. I
It's
mean,
beautiful.
that's not everywhere. So consider environment as much as the actual job that you select. And then again, back to the beginning, just like what do you walk away feeling energized about? For me, it's kind of those one-on-one counseling moments. For some people, it's speaking in front of 500 people, and for some people, it's hiding in a cubicle and putting their nose to the grindstone and developing a project and kind of like hiding in the shadows. And so, I'd say really identify what you value as you seek out a higher ed career.
And what about you? What advice do you have for folks?
Yeah, I'm kind of chiming in on what everybody else has said, but I also want to pick up on, I don't know, I think I've hired like about 400 people over the course of my career, and he just touched on something that I used to use as a regular pitch. The place is a postcard campus. Oh my gosh, can you imagine working in a prettier environment? Wow. And, we have all these, just this tremendous variety of benefits, some of which are just there for you to take advantage of. They don't really cost us anything. They don't cost you anything. It's a gorgeous place. So, just look. Everybody turn around and look. Just wow. And you've got all kinds of history here around you. And if you haven't noticed, people who have been here on campus, and I actually have people who stop and do this to me. If you stop us while we're walking across campus and you ask about Davy Popular, I'll tell you the story. And there's most of us on campus who have worked here for probably more than 10 years who know that story. And that's one of the things that is just so charming about being at Carolina. Now, all right, having said all of that, internships, taking part-time jobs, same thing, just another aspect to it. I've held all kinds of positions here on campus, and it's all because I would look for a need and volunteer. Because that's how you can find something else to do. I taught in summer workshop programs over at the School of Social Work. When I was with the Office of Research Services for 3 years, I went to Bethesda, Maryland, and worked with NIH every other month. Went up there to NIH, and it was about distributing information for grants and contracts. Pretty much anything, if you can find it, you can probably find a way to get into it. You just got to find what it is, and like he says, find something that's your passion, something that interests you. But also be willing to take a risk. I know I'm trying to point everybody out. And go ahead and try it. 99% of the time, that's probably an overstatement. 90% of the time, it's a lot. If you'll show an interest in something, the person who's over that little bailiwick, they just get all tickled at that, and they'll respond, and they'll just like, oh yeah, sure, okay. Well, let me show you how we do this, and you'll learn things. So don't be afraid to volunteer. Networking, if you're comfortable doing it, things like this and the employee forum and other events like this on campus, yes, definitely a good thing. But you don't have to restrict it to trying to go around smoozing. There's other ways to, obviously, there are other ways to find your way into campus. But I'm like these folks here on the other end of the table, so now I've called everybody. I went to school here, and I just kind of got hooked, and made it a career out of it. And I'm glad I did. Look, they've sent me all over the place. I've been to Nevada, California, Washington, Chicago. Oh my gosh, I've been all kinds of places, and it was all associated with doing things here through whoever I was working for with the university at the time. So it can be as rich as you're willing to make it. How's that?
That's great. I think that a big part of having such a panel with diversity of roles is showing that universities are kind of worlds unto themselves. They're businesses and nonprofits unto themselves. If you have a passion for communications, there's probably a way to do it on campus. If you have a passion for IT, don't just think you have to go to a technology organization. It can be here on campus. So I want to open it up in our last bit of time to some questions. Things that you all want to know, either from specific panelists or questions in general as you think about a career on campus. Yes?
Oh, this is a question for Aaron, Todd. My name is Melissa. I work in academic advising.
Hi, Melissa. Academic advising's the best.
Yeah, I work over at the Friday Center, and I work with students in continuing education. And I just wondered, it sounded like you were describing the most rewarding part of your job as sort of advising. Is that a lot of what you do as Assistant Director of Student Affairs?
I do less of it at the graduate and professional level, so I kind of seek it out myself. For instance, we have a class that's taught in the School of Pharmacy. It's a professional development class, and so I've asked the instructor, like, if you need someone to look at a CV or resume. And so this week I've been meeting with students one-on-one and kind of helping them fine-tune their resume. So there's still opportunities. It's probably less than when I worked in academic advising, where it's like a revolving door of students and 30 appointments in a week. It's not that, but there's still opportunities, and I think in any position you can kind of create opportunities if you're missing some part of like professional energy out of it.
So in student affairs, it's more like recruiting, retention activities. What are the activities that you do most in?
Yeah, so our office does a lot of this, what we call signature events for the school. So commencement is high on our radar. Oh my God, it's less than 2 months away. And that's a big deal. And then within pharmacy, we have a white coat ceremony. And then we have 15 or 16 student organizations that we help train the advisors to mentoring, peer mentoring. In the graduate side, we have an alumni mentoring program. And so it really is, it's an overseas experience. It's a hodgepodge with no 2 days alike. But yeah, it's just, for me, it's a very positive environment because you're doing all positive. And some folks might end up working in, depending on what they call on the campus, like student conduct. I probably couldn't do that as a career.
Yeah.
Because I do like people. Even though I'm an ISTJ, I feel feelings too. But that takes, I think, to be successful, I think that takes a different type of personality than I probably have. It's still mentoring, it's advising, sometimes it's delivering bad news. And so, personality fit, I think, is a big deal with what type of office that we fit in as well.
Now, I've heard that student affairs can look a little bit different if you're kind of the 1 or 2 people in a particular college or school being the student affairs person, the way that Aaron is, or if you're working for student affairs proper on a big campus. So that could range everything from Greek life, residence life, study abroad. There are really, a wide gamut. Dean of Students office that can fall under student affairs. It really depends on where you're working. Good. Other questions? Yes.
This is pretty much directed towards everybody. So I get the sense that you've all kind of, found yourselves just falling into your interest in really being higher ed and just kind of come along and I know this is really something I enjoy doing. That being said, how valuable do you feel is perhaps pursuing a graduate program in higher ed admin or college student development? Is that a valuable asset? Is it something that you think can enhance your experience once you're already in your own professional development? There is a...
I'll go second. I'm biased, so I would say so.
Okay, so I have a master's in project management, and I got it at Western. I didn't get it here, and I think there was a lot of value in doing that because I wanted to find out. Well, did everything at Chapel Hill? Is this the only place in the universe? No, Cullowhee's a wonderful place. Having done that, I think it definitely helps. I really, really do. Is it a requirement? No, but if you ask, because I do try and mentor my staff, and if they ask questions like that, I definitely encourage them. You know, putting initials after your name is a good thing, okay? So, yeah.
I kind of have a different personal opinion, but it's because of my job and my field. I just have a bachelor's, and I've asked several people in development, you know, what are your thoughts on now they have like a master's in nonprofit fundraising and things of that nature. And a long time ago, someone said, you know, I got all of my degrees the first time I asked somebody for $1 million in their living room. So, you know, I think with our field, we get our degrees and our experience, through our experience, which is much more important and much more valuable in building that confidence that you need to go in to make it ask for a major gift. You know, my parents ask all the time, what did I spend all that money for in Chapel Hill for you to go to these dinners with people? So, and I remind them that I got a degree in public relations, and what I'm doing is public relations. I'm building relationships. I'm meeting people. They learn to, you know, get excited about what they do. I help find that connection for them and their passion in the university. And so for me personally, you know, there's also a certification. You can get a CFRE to be a certified fundraiser. And there are some people that, a lot of people have those, especially outside of higher education. But from the higher education perspective, I've kind of taken the route of just getting as much experience as I can in major gift fundraising.
I'll say even thermometers have degrees. Anyway, but that sounded a lot better when I rehearsed it this morning. What I would do is if you have a dream job in mind, credit to Al Gore, go home and Google it and see what job descriptions come up. And the value of the degree might only come in when it's master's required. So you could top out in certain areas without a master's degree, but I think you can be great without it. But that's what I would encourage you to do. Just think in your head, like, where do I ultimately want to become? So I had these aspirations of wanting to be a dean of students. So I started the player hater degree, and I never finished it. That was also funnier this morning. Thank you. Thanks for getting that. Acronyms are hard. But yeah, so, but then I started and realized I wasn't really passionate about research and writing. And so I kind of found my happy place dialed back and not being a dean of students, where in most cases, not all, like an EDD or a JD or a PhD would be required.
I would just add that I wouldn't have found my path without getting my master's degree. It just opened up doors to me. And it wasn't so much that I learned so much to help me do my job. It just opened doors to, you know, especially, you know, faculty members who become mentors, things like that, of that nature. And so that was important to me early on just because I didn't have a path, and it helped give me one. So if you have a path, I can see where it's really not that necessary. However, I have gotten to a point where I am getting jobs where the job description is master's or advanced degree, either desired or required, and so that's helpful. So I would say, you know, your advice is spot on. It just really depends on what you want to do. If you're looking to break into a different career, continuing education, even a certification might be a way, even in terms of just making those new relationships, contacts.
I would say for me, I have started my master's, but I did not finish mine. That's a little unheard of now when you're thinking about college admissions. So I think some of my doors opened early on and probably discouraged me from probably doing what I should have done in terms of college admissions. Most of the people that we hire now, I would say in our office, 99% of them will have a master's in something. So higher ed administration is a great field, but I would say a master's in anything that you enjoy. The higher ed administration is certainly not required, and we are looking for a diversity of skills and a variety of people that will bring in a variety of things to the office. You can be taught how to recruit, you know, but you need to bring in some of those other type experiences that many people have had.
So I want to be respectful of everyone's time, knowing that some folks have to head back to the office for 1 o'clock as well. I hope that you learned a lot. I'm going to ask our panelists to hang out for a little bit if folks have other questions. Hold on one second, Andy. I do want to say that if you want to do a little bit more research on this, two organizations I would suggest are NASPA and ACPA. They're kind of the big overarching higher ed organizations. And then there are certainly professional organizations that identify with certain functional areas, such as development and communications as well. And so I encourage you to keep these conversations going with yourself, with the people on the panel, with other folks on campus, and people in the field on other campuses as well. We really appreciate your being here today. Let's thank our panelists. If you get any food, you're welcome to get on your way out. We are recording the session today, so we will have it online available for you and for anyone else who may have missed it that you want to check on. All right, thank you.